Okay, let's dive straight into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to explore a truly cinematic thought experiment. History is filled with these pivotal, world-changing moments, but honestly, very few are as intensely debated and analyzed as the Allied invasion of Normandy. Today, we're going to run a fascinating simulation based on an incredibly compelling scenario. We're taking the brutal, historical reality of that day, and we're dropping a completely unexpected variable right into the middle of it. So get ready, because we are going to look at how modern military doctrine and cutting-edge technology would actually fare in one of the deadliest environments of the 20th century. And more importantly, what that teaches us about the evolution of warfare and the real limits of technology today. To really understand the impact of this experiment, we first have to set the scene based on the chilling historical reality. Picture this. It's early morning, June 6, 1944, the coast of France. The sea is slate gray, the air is freezing cold. The American soldiers inside those landing craft are dead silent. Some are praying, others are just gripping their rifles as tightly as humanly possible. Then, the boats inch closer to the shore. The ramp drops. And in literally the very first second, immediate, devastating machine gun fire begins. Many of these soldiers fall before their boots even have a chance to touch the sand. That was the nightmare reality of Omaha Beach. But now, we are changing one monumental thing in this timeline. What if the men landing on this beach right now are not just soldiers from 1944? Imagine that, at that exact moment, a modern U.S. Marine platoon, about 40 men, arrives at Omaha Beach. We're replacing a fraction of that first wave to see if modern training and 21st century tech could actually change the fate of the thousands of American soldiers trapped on that sand. Section 1. The modern loadout. Establishing the rules. Before we get to the action, we need to set the ground rules for this scenario. This modern Marine platoon isn't just packed into a single, vulnerable target. They're strategically split up across 4 separate landing craft, with roughly 10 modern soldiers in each boat. Now, they are operating under some very strict parameters here. Yes, they absolutely have an incredible modern loadout. Small reconnaissance drones, thermal and night vision, modern radios, body armor, smoke grenades, modern rifles, the works. But they also face severe limitations. They have zero heavy support. I mean, no tanks, no helicopters, no fighter jets swooping in to save the day. And, crucially, they do not have endless ammunition. They only have the explosives and medical gear that they can physically carry on their backs. Because they're so heavily outnumbered, the platoon leader issues crystal-clear orders before those ramps even drop. No one is going out there to play hero, and absolutely no one is running out into the open. Their goal is incredibly specific. Step 1, find exactly where the fire is coming from. Step 2, open small, safe lines across the beach. And Step 3 is the ultimate mission. They aren't there to single-handedly conquer the German army. Their primary goal is simply to buy a few precious minutes of survival time for the 1944 American soldiers dying on the sand. Section 2. Securing the beachhead. First contact. Let's see how this actually plays out tactically. The first boat is one of the earliest to hit the shore. But unlike the historical soldiers who are waiting in absolute terror, the modern Marines go to work instantly. They don't even raise their heads over the ramp. Instead, they deploy their very first modern asset. A Marine preps a small drone. Now, normally, flying a drone in heavy wind, sea spray, and a literal hail of bullets seems totally insane, right? But just before the ramp fully drops, it takes off and rises behind the boat. The German soldiers are so hyper-focused on the hundreds of targets below them, they don't even notice this tiny little object up in the sky. Within seconds, it maps the suicidal geography of Omaha Beach directly to the platoon leader's small screen. It reveals the flat, open sand with absolutely nowhere to hide. It shows the concrete positions built into the cliffs, the interlocking machine gun nests, and the hidden minefields. It shows that these soldiers are walking directly into a perfectly designed kill zone. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive paradigm shift that technology brings to the battlefield. For the 1944 soldier, Omaha Beach is total, blinding chaos. It literally feels like bullets are just materializing out of thin air from everywhere all at once. But for the modern Marine with a drone feed, as terrifying as the beach is, it suddenly becomes a readable space. They have data. They know exactly where the threats are located. Let's jump over to the third boat to see how they actually use this data. Based on the drone footage, they identify a machine gun nest on the left side that's just cutting down soldiers at a brutal angle. The 1944 soldiers can't see it, but the modern Marines can. Using thermal optics, they spot the heat signatures and the movement inside that concealed position. With just a few highly controlled, incredibly accurate shots from modern rifles, that specific machine gun goes silent. It doesn't win the whole battle, obviously, but suddenly a small sector of the beach can actually breathe. Meanwhile, the Marines in the second boat are executing synchronized, highly calculated movements. They don't just rush out blindly. They read the direction of the fire and then pop modern smoke grenades over the water and the sand. That smoke breaks the Germans' line of sight for just a few vital seconds, and this allows the Marines to actively execute their tactical maneuvers, laying down suppressive fire, physically pulling the wounded behind obstacles, and beginning that agonizingly slow push through the smoke toward the base of the cliffs. Section 3, when technology fails. Friction on the sand. Because look, this is war, and no plan survives first contact perfectly. Over at the fourth boat, things take a very dark turn. The exact moment their ramp opens, a German mortar shell lands right nearby. The explosion violently shakes the entire landing craft. There is a really harsh truth to modern warfare here. Modern equipment makes you powerful, but it does not make you untouchable. Omaha Beach is still Omaha Beach. In that mortar strike, one Marine actually falls into the water and has to be frantically pulled back up by his teammate. Another Marine takes a terrifying direct hit right to his chest plate. Now, the modern ceramic armor absolutely saves his life, but the sheer kinetic force drops him to the ground, leaving him unable to move or even breathe for several seconds. The brutal reality of the environment is fighting back hard. And very quickly, that modern advantage begins to collapse. The German officers up all the cliffs are confused at first, sure, but they aren't stupid. They notice something very different happening in one specific sector of the beach, and they shift their fire. The mortars start landing closer. To make matters worse, the drone's battery is rapidly dropping. A German soldier spots the tiny object in the sky, opens fire, and the video feed starts glitching out. And worst of all, the Marines' limited ammunition is dropping to critical levels. So the crucial point is they have to act decisively right now before they're completely overrun. The platoon leader realizes they cannot clear miles of beach. So using the very last of the drone's battery, they identify exactly 3 primary targets they must eliminate to survive. They need to take out the deadliest machine gun nest, the observation point directing that awful mortar fire, and the main concrete position that is completely locking down their advance. Section 4, altering D-Day's fate. The final assault. This brings us to the climax of the battle. That main concrete position is completely dominating the beach. Every single time it fires, exposed soldiers fall. The modern Marines can't penetrate heavy concrete from a distance, and their ammo is almost gone. So they make a highly risky decision. A small team is going to use the blind angle they found on the drone feed to approach the base of the cliff right behind the smoke, while the rest of the Marines draw the Germans' fire directly onto themselves. The advance is just grueling. The sand is heavy, wounded men are shouting all around them, and suppressive fire is dropping everywhere. Once the technology fails and the ammunition runs out, all that remains is courage. But here is the most incredible moment of this whole scenario. The 1944 soldiers actually see the safe lines being opened. They realize they have a chance, and they no longer just wait in fear. The historical soldiers rally, firing their weapons, pulling the wounded, actively supporting the modern Marines in their final push. Let's track this final, desperate assault minute by minute. First, a team on the beach manages to silence the small observation point above, which immediately breaks the accuracy of that terrifying mortar fire. Next, the assault team reaches the cliff base and detonates their explosive right at the concrete position's weak point, instantly silencing the main machine gun line. And finally, over on the right side, the Marines use their very last smoke grenades and their final major explosive asset to knock out the last interlocking field of fire. So what's the ultimate outcome of this thought experiment? Well, 40 Marines obviously didn't clear the entire beach by themselves. D-Day remains a massive, bloody operation. However, by taking out those critical, interlocking positions early on, far fewer casualties are suffered in the killing zone. The safe lines allow the American forces to push past the sand much quicker. Ultimately, the German defense begins to collapse earlier, meaning their control over the beach is broken much faster than historical records show. It's just a fascinating look at how information, optics, and precise coordination can shift the momentum of an entire battle, even when you're heavily outnumbered. But it leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Could modern training and technology truly rewrite the deadliest moments of history? Or does the brutal friction of war always demand a heavy price? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this scenario. Or hey, if you have any alternate history ideas of your own, please drop them in the comments below. See you next time.